Charlamagne confronts Secretary of State Pete Buttigieg. We're going to talk about that next on the Carl Jackson Show podcast.
Redeemed, rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Listen, over Friday, Charlamagne is no God. I can't stand saying Charlamagne the God. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Seems like a nice guy. Seems like an intelligent guy. Obviously, we disagree politically, but I just cannot stand saying Charlamagne the God. Just because I don't believe men can be God. I believe there is only one God, and I believe his name is Jesus Christ. So that just annoys the crap out of me. So I will just say Charlamagne, or Charlamagne is no God. Not any disrespect meant towards him. I just don't believe. Listen, I'm not going to put any man on that type of pedestal, even if it is for entertainment purposes. So Charlamagne confronted Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. I'm going to let you hear the audio, and then we're going to come back and discuss some of the things that were talked about.
A lot of black people feel like Democrats have kept no promises since they've been in office.
Really?
Yes. Reverend Allen said that a million times. I'm sure he'll be pressing you about that tomorrow.
Look, I get it, because the work is not done. But the reason I say really is we just passed one of the biggest pieces of infrastructure legislation in American history. It was a promise, and it wasn't just a promise that the Biden-Harris administration made or that us Democrats made in 2020. This is a promise that every president and every Congress has made in some way, shape, or form for as long as I've been an adult. And we actually did it.
But those are big, broad things, and that's great. But I'm talking about things you campaigned on, like the George Floyd Policing Act, and the fact that our voting rights, man, like 19 states have implemented voter suppression bills. You know that's going to directly impact us the most. And the only strategy Democrats are going to have is we got to go out there and vote in mass numbers to fight it. That's not a strategy.
No,
Hope is not a strategy.
Right, mobilization is a strategy, and these tactics that you're talking about make mobilization harder. And you're absolutely right. That work is not done. That work has to get done, and it's not acceptable where we are right now. I think all of that's true.
Yeah,
I get it.
And you know what really?
So let me just reiterate some of the things that Charlamagne talked about in the audio. And again, you had you had Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg appearing on Charlamagne's The Breakfast Club with him, and just a couple of lines that I want to go over. Charlamagne said to Pete Booty, I call him a Booty because I believe his policies stink, but he says you do realize, or he poses a question. You do realize a lot of black people feel like Democrats have kept no promises since they've been in office. And then you saw the reaction from Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, like, really? I mean, he's absolutely shocked. He's astonished, and that was real. And he tried his best to make a recovery. Charlamagne says yes, and then Buttigieg says, "Look, I get it because the work is not done." But the reason I say really is we just passed one of the biggest pieces of infrastructure legislation in American history. It was a promise, and it wasn't just a promise that the Biden-Harris administration made or that U.S. Democrats made in 2020. This is a promise that every president and every Congress has made in some way, shape, or form since I've been an adult, and we actually did it. Okay, so infrastructure, every administration virtually passes infrastructure. Pete Booty is full of it. All right, so Charlamagne says and continues to confront him. Those are big, broad things, and that's great. But I'm talking about things like things you campaigned on, like the George Floyd Policing Act and the fact our voting rights, our voting rights. 19 states have implemented voter suppression bills. And I'm going to get into that. And he says, that's going to directly impact us the most. The only strategy the Democrats are going to have is, quote, we got to go out there and vote in mass numbers to fight it. And he says that's not a strategy. And then Secretary of Transportation, Pete Booty, says, right, mobilization is a strategy. These tactics that you're talking about make mobilization harder. You're absolutely right. That work is not done. That work has to get done, and it's not acceptable where we are right now. Okay, so let's talk about this because, listen, again, no disrespect meant to Charlamagne, but he's not doing anything to help out the black community. So let's talk about some of the things that he's talking about. He says the George Floyd Policing Act. Well, here's the thing. Crime has absolutely skyrocketed across the country as a result of depolicing. And when I say depolicing, I mean not just the defund the police movement that the Democrat Party fully embraced and tried to impose on the rest of America, but police are not signing up to become police officers anymore. And why should they? That makes me fearful, because some of the ones that remain, in my opinion, might be loyal to the Democrat Party, the social justice warrior movement, so on, etc. And they're just not going to enforce crime. Or they'll depolice, meaning I'm not going to risk my job. I'm not going to risk my career. I'm not going to risk being called a racist or anything of the sort in order to protect somebody. Listen, people always put their self-preservation first and foremost in their lives. And that's exactly what's going to happen with police. Police are human beings too. So if it means losing their ability to be able to eat, to be able to support their family, to lose their career, people are going to choose self-preservation. Police officers are absolutely no different. You think about depolicing, you think about defund the police movement. What communities do they impact the most? Obviously, it's going to be blue cities that are overwhelmingly black, Latino, minority, white liberals, whatever it may be. These are the communities that are going to be impacted the most. And actually, white liberals are smart enough to move to the suburb and then just act like they understand the struggle and they're down with the struggle. So I understand what Charlamagne is trying to do. When I was liberal in my thinking, I thought the same way: help the black community, help the black community, help the black community. But you're not going to help the black community by isolating the black community simply because the black community has the same needs that every other community has. The black community wants to be safe, like any other community inside of the United States of America. The black community wants to eat like every other person inside of America. The black community has to pay higher gas prices. The black community has to deal with inflation. So Charlamagne is doing no service, in my opinion, to the black community by supporting the Democrat Party. And someone just has to be real with the guy. Smart guy, intelligent guy, no doubt. But liberal policies, Democratic policies are not and never have helped the black community. You're talking about the party of the KKK. You're talking about the party that was against civil rights. You're talking about the party that has done nothing for the black community except kept us impoverished. Why is it after over a half century of blacks committing basically or wedding themselves to the Democratic Party, absolutely nothing has happened? Charlamagne the God is having the same complaints that blacks had 50 years ago. Nothing has gotten better. The reason why black conservatives are black conservatives like myself I think are doing better is simply because we realize that, listen, it's God over government, right? We don't have to worry about government, what government is going to do. We just want government to stay the heck up out of our business. And I guarantee you, if you speak to and you really drill down on people like Charlamagne, who have become, enormously successful, they'll tell you basically that government has stayed out of the way too. They didn't count on government to succeed. The Whoopi Goldbergs of the world, the Oprah Winfreys of the world, they just did hard work. They followed their dream. They followed their passion, and they've had great success as a result of that. And that's what Charlamagne should be teaching and preaching to the black community. It's nonsense. Let me just read this. This from Hat Tip Just the News. Americans more worried about crime amid violence and retail crime wave. And this says Americans, right? Not blacks, not whites, not Latinos, not Asians. Americans. We're in America. And again, blacks would be disproportionately affected by crime. So for Charlamagne to talk about this nonsense in the George Floyd Policing Act is just silly. Who's it? He's going to be isolated from crime for the most part because he can afford to move away out of crime-ridden areas, so on, etc. But not all black people are going to have that privilege. So that's what frustrates me. Again, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but he's just completely wrong on this stuff. This isn't going to help the black community. You see one case of, a Derek Chauvin and George Floyd or whatever. And then all of a sudden you judge every single police officer. It's stupid. There's a reason why the left continues to put these news stories about policing on their airwaves, because they get major play. They get major play, and then they keep blacks mad, intentionally so. This is a strategy. This is psychological warfare to make sure that blacks don't leave the Uncle Sam's plantation. That's all it is. They want the black community to be hooked on government welfare, to be hooked on government dependency, to think that their hope comes from government instead of God. And this is why you see so much damage within the black community. And sadly, what you have to stop doing is listening. You have to stop listening to people like Charlamagne. He's not asking the right questions. He even, mentioned Al Sharpton things. So who cares about Big Perm Al Sharpton? Al Sharpton is just a race hustler. Nothing more, nothing less than a race hustler. So here's the stats. After a major spike, hat tip just the news. After a major spike in violent crime in recent years and a wave of retail theft, Americans are growing more concerned about crime. Newly released Gallup polling found that 53% of surveyed Americans worry, quote, a great deal about crime, the highest level since 2016. The poll found an additional 27% of Americans are worried a fair amount about crime, with women, Republicans, and city residents among the most concerned. Now, so listen to who's worried about crime. Again, the Gallup poll found that 53% of those surveyed worried a great deal about crime. The highest level since 2016, since Barack Obama's years. The poll found an additional 27%, of Americans are worried. That means crime has increased is worse under Biden than it was, obviously, under Barack Obama and President Trump. A fair amount, women are concerned. Republicans are obviously concerned. Listen, I don't want my red state acting like blue cities. I don't want to see it here. There's a reason. I have no shame in my game. I don't want to be around crime. Who does? I don't. I grew up that way. Don't want to be back there. Have no problem saying it. Doggone right. All right, and then. So city residents are among the most concerned. Well, who overwhelmingly lives in the city? New York, L.A., Chicago, Detroit. Who overwhelmingly lives in those cities? Blacks and minorities. So this is gonna. So when I'm glad Charlamagne has the platform that he has, and again, a smart guy, but he's just completely wrong on this stuff, and it's going to be blacks that are going to be negatively impacted by this. Listen to these stats. Americans' concern about crime and violence in the U.S. has edged up in the past year, and for the first time since 2016, a majority, 53%, say they personally worry a great deal about crime. This according to Gallup. Another 27% report that they worry a, quote, fair amount, unquote, which places the issue near the top of the list of 14 national concerns, behind only inflation and the economy, on par with hunger and homelessness. And again, inflation, the economy, hunger, homelessness. You don't think this is why, sadly, black people ask the wrong question. All of these issues affect black people. And the sad thing is, Charlamagne is only seeing through the lens of blackness. So he's not going to be able to do anything to help black people out. You got to look at the issues that actually help black people. This is asinine to me. I honestly, I don't know why we go to people like Charlamagne for political information, for political insight, for political enlightenment. It's insane. It is insane. I'm sorry. The guy does not know what he's talking about. And the fact that the Democrat Party and the top tier Democratic leaders are going to Charlamagne to get his approval tells you that they know their policies stink. So what they have to do is placate to the cultural gods, if you will, like Charlamagne, just to keep black people entrapped. Just to say, yeah, we got your back, even though our policies are going to totally destroy you and screw you. In the long run, you're going to be hurt probably the worst because we're going to keep promoting our green agenda and so on, etc. No one cares. Listen, the Democrat Party doesn't care about the black community. The Democrat Party doesn't care about any American community, in my opinion. They care about power. They care about leverage. They care about their elite friends that they go to parties with. And that's it. You're either in the the club or you're not in the club. That is the Democratic Party today. It's really as simple as that. Gallup has also tracked this measure since 2001. The level of concern as far as crime is concerned, and when a record high 88% of U.S. adults said that they worried about crime and violence, including 62% who expressed a great deal of concern. The group said worry about crime was lowest in 2014, when 70% were worried, including 39% who said they were worried a great deal. The poll comes after a major violent crime wave, both that you've seen in San Francisco, also with these retail crimes that we've seen in the Bay Area of California in stores. These DAs have been extremely lenient, where any thefts under $950 it is. In California is a non-violent misdemeanor, so you've seen crime there skyrocket. Also, New York has seen a rise in retail crime on the heels of a spike in violent crime in recent years. The FBI reported a major rise in homicides in 2020 alone. FBI data is not yet available for 2021, but those numbers are also expected to be elevated in 2021. I'm sure they will be. This, according to the FBI, this is, again, 2020 stats. The FBI there were roughly 21,500 murders reported in 2020. That's the highest number in decades. In 2020, there were an estimated 1,277,696 violent crimes. When compared with the estimates from and you want to defund the police. 1,277,696 violent crimes, and you want to defund the police. Black people, you got to be out of your freaking mind. When compared with the estimates from 2019, the estimated number of robbery offenses fell 9.3%. That's good. The estimated volume of rape decreased 12%. 12%. That's good. I'm not sure if I believe that, simply because in a crazy year like 2020, I suspect that more rape went unreported because of COVID lockdown, so on, etc. Sadly, the estimated number of aggravated assault offenses rose 12%, and the volume of murder and non-negligent manslaughter offenses increased 29.4%. All right, so crime is up. If you're going to help the black community, you don't defund the police. You don't invoke some George Floyd, what is it? George Floyd Policing Act. This is what should be the George Floyd Policing Act. Black men and women stick together. Black men and women, husbands and wives that stick together and raise their children and teach their children the ways of God. Also to have some common sense when it comes to the street, end up very successful, just like everyone else. So the formula is to worship God, to promote traditional family units, and the black community is going to see a level of success like you wouldn't believe. It's really that simple. And sadly, the left will not report this. Work hard. We see the stats all the time. Work hard. If you're a young black man, make sure that you stay in school. Make sure that you graduate high school. Make sure that once you get out, basically you don't get a girl pregnant. Make sure you get married first, or get a job, get married, then have kids. You'll be successful. That's the formula, no matter what race, no matter what ethnicity. I'm sorry, it's the only one human race. So no matter what ethnicity. All right. So that's that. And then let's just quickly talk about, let me find it, some of the voting rights thing. What did Charlamagne say? He also said the fact that our voting rights, 19 states have implemented voter suppression bills. Okay, so this is just stupid. I'm so tired of black people talking about this. Listen, but I guarantee you, this is what Charlamagne equates to voter suppression, voter ID. So I'm sure Charlamagne has had to use voter ID to make major purposes, whether it's a car, whether it's a home, whatever it may have been. I'm sure I got a feeling he was for vaccine passports. I have to go back and look that up, but I got a feeling, being a Democrat, he supported all things Democrat, everything that they were trying to impose on the rest of us. So I'm sure that he did that. So what Republicans want to do, by the way, again, voter ID requirements for mail-in ballots. What's wrong with that? If you go to vote in person, you have to show an ID to prove who you are. Of course, you should do that. Otherwise, you want to cheat. It's really as simple as that. The Republicans want to curb the practice of ballot harvesting. So you can't just go to somebody's house and, hey, give me your ballot. I'll take your ballot. No, voting is sacred. One person, one vote. I'm sorry. You don't need activists going to people's houses and trying to get ballots, collect ballots for them. It's going to be ripe with fraud if you do that. Or going to nursing homes like we found out many did in 2020. Frauding, using the identities of residents in nursing homes, some of them that aren't even cognitively able to make a decision to vote any longer. Voting, it's insane. Cleaning voter rolls. Listen, dead people shouldn't vote. I know that's a major constituency within the Democrat Party, but that's what the Republicans want. Dead people shouldn't be voting. Mickey Mouse shouldn't be voting, for God's sakes. That's all that election reform encompasses for the most part. Also, what Republicans want to do is they want to ban the funding from people like what's his name, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. Let me find this from this is from the Daily Signal. Many states have banned private funding election administration in response to Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg spending $400 million on funding it, primarily in Democrat-leaning jurisdictions. So what Mark Zuckerberg did to try to stay out of legal trouble is he gave a little bit of money to Republicans, but he gave the vast amount of his money, overwhelmingly so, to Democrats that helped them fund their get-out-the-vote efforts, basically because he wanted Democrats to win in these blue cities. So this cannot be permitted. You can't have just billionaires coming in and deciding election. They should have one if they want to donate to a PAC, they're free to do that, right? And that's often what they do. But to actually donate a private citizen to election officials, that should be illegal. I thought it was illegal, as a matter of fact. So this is something that should not be happening as well. But it's just asinine to say what black people are too stupid to have IDs. It's amazing to me that Charlamagne the God, as successful as he is, would always play the race card and always play the victim card on behalf of other blacks instead of telling blacks how to make it like he has, how to become so successful. What did he do? This stuff is frustrating. There's also a lot of states, by the way. In 2021, one of the big, the left were outraged about the Georgia voting law. But when it comes to the Georgia voting law, here's what you need to understand. It's less restrictive than the voting laws in liberal states such as New York, Colorado. Now, Colorado has mail-in voting. So some liberals will try to argue, Colorado doesn't count because they have mail-in voting. Yes, but they require an ID, valid ID match with their mail-in voting. So if you want to do that, okay, whatever. New Jersey, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Rhode Island all have stricter laws than the Georgia law. Yet, and don't forget Joe Biden's Delaware. Very strict voting laws. Yet Republicans are racist when they pass the same voting laws. So Charlamagne it just shows you how uninformed he is on this issue. He's just reading from one side of the source, right? His side of the aisle. And so he just doesn't know this stuff. He doesn't hear about this stuff because he exists obviously in the left-wing bubble. So he's got to call out New York. He needs to call out Colorado. He needs to call out New Jersey, Wisconsin, and all of these blue states that have stricter voting laws. And Delaware, Joe Biden's own state. Just a complete, I don't want to say hypocrite. I just think he's uninformed. It's as simple as that. Smart guy, uninformed on these issues. And this is why politicians should not be going to him to get his okay. But it also tells you how desperate Democrats are, that they need Charlamagne the God in order. Charlamagne is no God. Charlamagne, in order to get reelected. They're desperate. They have to rely on people. They have to rely on the culture. Now, to my chagrin, Republicans don't rely on the culture too much, but also to my chagrin, Democrats rely on the culture far too much. So this is just complete and utter nonsense on the part of Charlamagne the God. Pete Buttigieg and the Democrat Party has been caught with their pants down. They're not. It's not that they're just not helping the black community. They're not helping any community, Charlamagne. And that is the problem. When we constantly try to isolate the black community, we're only going to continue to get hurt. Work with other ethnicities within America to establish equal protections under the law. We've done that for the most part. When there is an injustice, everyone speaks out, but none of this fake racism, perceived racism, judging the entire police community based upon one video or two videos from cops, when you won't put up videos of Tony Timpa and other whites that have been abused by police officers because it doesn't fit the narrative. Let's stop playing this game. Let's stop relying on the Charlamagnes of the world, or the Charlamagnes of the U.S. in order to try to become more politically informed. It simply is not going to happen. Sadly, what's happening is a further dumbing down of the black vote. But Democrats are very scared. I read a column earlier today where basically in the last decade or so, Democrats, the last couple of major elections, presidential elections, Democrats have increasingly lost black support. Under Trump, it went down to Democrats having 90% of the vote. I'll have to get into that another day, but this is what the Democrat Party fears, and that's why they want to import a lot of illegal voters or import Democrats from across the world, because the black vote is slowly but surely slipping away. If the black vote continuously drops every presidential election a few percentage points, then the Democrat Party knows they cannot win. There goes their power. There goes their sadly, they're powerful when you're weak. So that goes, there goes their, and when blacks are less dependent on the government, Democrats lose, and they know it. So their goal is to make blacks dependent on government, to keep blacks poor and mad. That is the Democrats' goal. That's why things will never get better in the black community as long as blacks overwhelmingly vote for the Democrat Party. Hey guys, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. In the meanwhile, I'm going to ask you to subscribe everywhere podcasts are found. Help me get the word out, please. Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. Particularly on Rumble, that would be a great help. And listen, guys, until next time. Oh, check out my website, carljacksonshow.com. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.